welcome. My name is Yuri, aka G-Rock. Welcome to the Big Honey Sports Podcast, Fantasy Football Edition. We have some hot takes today for you. Big Sean, again, not able to make it to this show, but I am here to lend you a little bit of advice as if I am an expert or something. However, I do enhanced research, I'd say, more than the typical person, so hopefully this will lead to some people getting help, I guess. I don't know, picking somebody up that I suggest off the waivers or whatever. Get this cup in here to make it look nice. All right, without further ado, this is week number 4 of the NFL fantasy football season. First off, to start, this COVID stuff is really screwing up a lot of stuff. I mean, Titans and Steelers postponed. That's a lot of big names automatically that are just eliminated for week 4, which really blows. And then you find out today, literally Saturday, the day before the game, that Cam Newton tested positive for COVID-19. So, and I guess somebody on the Chiefs also did. Backup quarterback, I believe, from what I read. So that game is also postponed until hopefully Monday or Tuesday. But that's a lot of big names as well that could potentially just not play. I don't know. It's probably like 50-50 if they play on Tuesday or not. So it doesn't look good, the fantasy football season in terms of this. This is going to add like a lot, throw a lot of wrenches into the equations moving forward. So if you are playing fantasy football, you just got to be ready for it, I guess. I mean, there's not much you can really do about it. It's just going to happen, It's just going to happen, and do your best to pick somebody up, I guess. I don't know, man. Who knows if this NFL season even finishes at this point. But without further ado, like I said 2 minutes ago, let's get into my startums and my situms for week 4. 3 players each. Let's go. And then I got like a sleeper, kind of like a hot take at the end here. So my start quarterback of the week is Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's playing the Seattle defense in Miami, which helps because he'll be, he doesn't have to travel or anything. He is playing a pretty bad defense in terms of passing attack and what the Seattle defense does against opposing quarterbacks. They don't do much. They've allowed really good passing performances in the early season to Matt Ryan. He scored 23, finished with 23 against him. Cam Newton finished with 34, and then Dak Prescott with 27. Now, that obviously says something substantial about their defense. They just don't play well against the pass. Ryan Fitzpatrick the whole year so far has been airing it out. They kind of have to, and that's going to continue in this game because they'll probably get down early, and then Miami's just going to have to play catch up the whole game. So Ryan Fitzpatrick is a pretty good start for me this week. I don't know how many turnovers the Seattle defense has allowed or taken, I guess, but it's not many. So, that's gonna play an impact. Ryan Fitzpatrick will air it out. I'd expect a good game out of Devontae Parker for sure. Myles Gaskin might get a lot of receptions on the ground, as a running back, he might get a lot of receptions, which is a nice play this week. And then Mike Gesicki, who happens to be on my fantasy team, also, he could probably have a good game. I think he could tilt the odds a little bit. The Seattle Seahawks have done a good job of bottling up tight ends so far, but that trend, I think, this week could kind of get off a little bit because Mike Gesicki's no joke. So that is start quarterback of the week, Ryan Fitzpatrick. Moving on to running back start of the week. David Johnson had one good game so far. It was, wow, look at that. One good game so far, and it was against the Chiefs, who, don't have the best run defense. And neither does Minnesota. Minnesota, who he's playing this week, has given up back-to-back 100-yard performances by the likes of Jonathan Taylor and Derrick Henry. Now, Derrick Henry, you would hope that he gets 100 yards on the ground because he's one of the best running backs in the league. I think he also scored twice in the game last week. Taylor also scored, I'm pretty sure, the week before that against the Minnesota defense. They've lost a lot of those interior components that you need to kind of bottle up the run game. David Johnson, I don't think he's not a push-off. He's not a pushover. He's not washed. I think he's still got quite a bit left in the tank. And this week is definitely a favorable matchup for him to show that. So I'd expect, 100 yards, a touchdown. I wouldn't expect a very high PPR performance from him in terms of how many catches he'll get. The defense of Minnesota has done a pretty good job of limiting that kind of production from running backs. But in terms of, he'll have a solid day. Like, he'll probably score, 12 to 15 or 16, maybe more. He maybe gets into the end zone twice. But David Johnson should have a pretty good game, so he's going to be a startup for May. Moving on to wide receiver for the week. It's Emmanuel Sanders. Sanders is the number one guy there. Another week, Michael Thomas officially ruled out again for the third week in a row, that high ankle sprain. So Emmanuel Sanders is going to be the number one de facto wide receiver. You need to take into account Jared Cook, the tight end, who's a favorite target of Drew Brees, is also not playing in this contest against the Lions. So because of that, Emmanuel Sanders' stock will go up just because of that. So it'll be, the main weapons are going to be Traquan Smith, him, Emmanuel Sanders, and Alvin Kamara. And I would say I'd be willing to bet the Lions probably try and over-defend Alvin Kamara, so to open up a lot of holes for Traquan and Emmanuel Sanders. Sanders being the most, I think, to benefit from it. The Lions defense, in terms of what they've given up, they've allowed number one receiving threats to thrive, giving up a touchdown in 2 or 3 games so far to the number one target. And I think Sanders' speed should play well against the Lions. They have a kind of a slow cornerback core, so you'll probably see a lot of zone, and that'll open up, I think, a lot of holes for Sanders to exploit. So start Emmanuel Sanders this week. And it's just because Jared Cook is out. I mean, that's one reason alone. Volume is going to be big for Emmanuel Sanders, hopefully. I mean, he did have that dud, but it's like you gotta think against the Lions. That's not going to happen. And I'll talk about the Vegas Raiders a little bit more soon. So those are the startums for me for the week, and now we'll get into sit-ems. So this one's kind of a given because he sucks. It is Kirk Cousins. But I couldn't really find another quarterback that I didn't like more than him this week. Kirk Cousins has been really hot and cold. And the Texans' defense, surprisingly, it's kind of like one of those matchups where, when you look at it face value, you're going to be like, oh, yeah, Texans, he should have a decent game. But the Texans have actually been pretty good on the passing defense. The only time they gave up 3 touchdowns or more so far is to Patrick Mahomes, which is naturally going to happen because he's the best quarterback in the league. So, that's kind of an outlier. But in terms of who else they played Big Ben and Lamar Jackson, and they limited both of them to, I believe, 1 touchdown or 2. I think it was 1 to Lamar and 2 to Big Ben. So they've done a pretty good job of bottling them up. They kind of have mediocre performances. They're not bad, but I would expect Kirk Cousins, because of that, he is not a great quarterback, so the Texans defense might show a little bit more of its, it might take him out a little bit more, show Kirk Cousins, and he might have a bad day. And people are expecting Kirk Cousins to break out. It's not going to be this week, so don't expect it, okay? He's probably not going to have a decent day. So that's a sit-em. All right. Second sit-em is Kareem Hunt. All right. Running back for the Cleveland Browns. All right. Now, I'm not going to get into personal reasons why I sat him or why I'm picking to sit him, but there are some legitimate reasons why you should consider other options. So the first one, the biggest one, is that he's battling a groin injury. He was limited in practice on Friday, and then he didn't practice for 2 days before that. So it's a groin injury, which is a little bit difficult for a running back, especially. The way they move, the way they have to cut and everything. Groin injuries are a little bit more tough for them to play through. Now, it doesn't sound like he's going to miss the game, but I would expect that his workload will probably be more limited than normal. And he is playing Dallas, and surprisingly, Dallas, they haven't been good at the run game of stopping running backs on defense, but they have stopped them from catching the ball. So they've limited, running backs in the first 3 weeks. They've limited them to under 40 yards receiving as a whole. So, any particular running back they face, they haven't eclipsed 40 yards. They also have not allowed more than 4 catches to any running back so far. And Kareem Hunt is one of those guys where the volume is kind of there if it's a good flow of game. And it could be a good flow for him tomorrow, but at the same time, you're looking at it and he's battling a groin injury. They've also not allowed any receiving touchdowns to running backs so far. Allowed a couple touchdowns on the ground, but I think Nick Chubb's going to be the biggest component of the running attack tomorrow. Now, Kareem Hunt's had good numbers to start off the season, but I don't think that's sustainable, and I think it starts tomorrow that he might struggle a little bit. He might not be getting as many fantasy points as you would think, especially from a game script that probably is favorable. So he is a sit-em for me for the week. Kind of a hot take there. So we'll see if that works out. But the Cowboys, their run defense, particularly passing, which is Kareem Hunt's strength, they've been pretty good at bottling it up. So third sit-em of the week is Stefon Diggs. Stefon Diggs of the Buffalo Bills. He's off to a great start. Yeah, wonderful start. However, he is facing the Raiders this week. And this game has the likes of being, I feel like, a little bit not lower scoring, but more slow, I guess. I don't think it'll be a shootout. It might be, just a little bit quieter of a game. And because of that, I don't want to start Stefon Diggs if I have him. So, which I don't, but for the people that do. They've done a good job, and I know it's kind of another hot take. Like, you're probably just going to start him anyways, but I'm just warning you, he might not have a good game. They've done a good job, the Raiders that is, of limiting number one options in the respective matchups of the number one options in the pass attack, I should say. So the Raiders they played DJ Moore, number one option on the Panthers, Sanders, who was the number one option on the Saints, and they played Edelman, who's obviously the number one option on the Patriots so far. They limited them all to under 5 catches total, and none of them scored a touchdown, the number one options, and they were all limited to under 60 yards receiving. And keep in mind, Stefon Diggs, I know he's a talented wide receiver and everything, but he's a number one on the Bills only because he's on the Bills. I mean, who else do they have? You know what I mean? Like, he's the number one option solely because Cole Beasley obviously isn't. Nobody else on that team is. John Brown isn't. So, I think he'll struggle a little bit against the cornerback matchups he's going to receive. Okay? So now here, let's get into the final portion of the video, which is kind of like a sleeper, I guess, or somebody who's going to exploit what is, I don't know what to say. Okay, Miles Sanders. All right, Miles Sanders has had a good start to the season, besides week 1, obviously. He's playing the 49ers, and everyone looks at this matchup and they're wondering if it's a good matchup for him. I think it's a great matchup for him because the 49ers, they kind of got taken out with Drake in week 1. Drake had a good game. I think he had 2 touchdowns. He might have had only 1, but he had a decent game. And then they played Gore and Freeman and Gallman in the next 2 weeks. And they're rated the number 1 running defense right now. That's not going to continue, obviously. And Miles Sanders in this matchup and the Eagles, I think they're going to exploit that. Like, the 49ers do not have a good run defense. They just don't. They just played 2 really terrible running backs. So that's my kind of, that trend's not continuing. So if you have Miles Sanders, no need to worry. You need to not worry about it. Just, he's going to be started, obviously. But if you're expecting, he might only get 60 yards. It's not going to happen. He's going to have a great game probably. So that is it for this Saturday, week 4 of the NFL season. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please subscribe if you like the content, and provide suggestions, anything like that. I really appreciate it. We will see you. Go Broncos, by the way. They won again finally. Well, they've not won again. They won for the first time this season against the Jets. Have a good game, everybody!